And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
This guy niggas paid, bitch ass nigga. Got paid. Hello. Got paid, nigga. Got paid. You man violating, nigga. Violating. You violating. Don't start doing that now. Don't start doing that. Don't start doing that now. Don't start doing that.
Don't start doing that though. Don't get me for no reason. Get back. Get back. Yo, get back. Get back.
Don't touch me, nigga. Don't touch me.
Yo, fam, get back. Get back.
Don't touch me.
Get back. Get back. Get back.
Don't touch me.
Get back. Get back. Get back.
Get back. Don't touch my brother.
Get back.
Fuck about
Get
y'all
back.
niggas. Don't touch me,
Get
nigga.
Get back. Get back. Get back. Get back. Get back. Get back. What's up? Don't touch me. Get back.
Unreal.
Okay, episode's over. I guess first of all, excuse me. I don't think you need to be a cop or need to be any analyst to actually explain this video. So that's what's quite interesting about this podcast, right? We always give our perspective, we give our analysis, we give our opinion. Do we really need to be cops to actually criticize this actual video? This is absolutely so egregious. It's so ridiculous. It's exactly what I've been saying for years now. I've been saying this since before 2018, but 2018 was the pinnacle moment. Cops, the overwhelming majority of the NYPD, excuse me, are now meek, timid, and docile. And this is just absolutely ridiculous. You really, honestly, let's just say, you do not have to be a cop to explain this video. You do not. I think this video explains itself.
I mean, personally, I think you saw this start with the viral video. I believe it happened in PSA 2 in the 7.5 when you saw two cops get water dumped on their head and they walked away and they did absolutely nothing. And then people made fun of them. The entire community made fun of them. And I think that was the messaging coming from the police academy and the training. I think when you look at that one video where we started to see New York City police officers get completely disrespected and abused and people have zero fear for them, I always go back. That's the one video that just plays in my head over and over again. And now we've seen hundreds of videos like this, just like this. The problem's completely systemic. The shorter Hispanic officer or Latino officer, he did his job. He was trying to get the guy. He had two other assailants coming at him, and his partner stood there. And I personally think he was completely in shock that his partner wasn't helping him.
You're absolutely right. First of all, when we watch this video, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat here. So when we watch this video, okay, I've heard a lot of critique on the cop that was actually grappling with the perpetrator, the adversary. I have no problems with that. Obviously, he's not the coward in this video. Neither is he the hero, but at least he tried to do his job. Now, what pains me is I've been training for years, all forms of martial arts, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing. I always took pride in that, Krav Maga. And I watch this video, and it hurts me. And we're so fortunate that the actual perpetrator, the adversary, has no training either, because I see the way the cop is grappling and the way he's overhooking, doing the schoolyard headlock, and he's actually in a position where he's in front of the perpetrator. And if the perpetrator had any wrestling or any jiu-jitsu background, he could easily have picked him off the ground and gotten the better half of him. So that's what's the unfortunate part. Obviously, the cops are not being taught. You and I both know when there's any type of wrestling or some type of martial arts training, some type of training that can be applicable to you doing your job outside. It's so short-sighted. It's one time per year, or maybe it's one time and you don't see it for another 5 years. It's not training that's going to be embedded in your head. This is something I've been telling the cops. You have to take the time on your own to train. Yes, it's going to come out of your own pocket, but it's also your own life. These videos are forever. You don't need videos being embarrassed, and you don't need your life being at risk. Now, the cop that is grappling, I can see the fear in his eyes. The fear, he doesn't know what's above him. He doesn't know what's going around him. He's got a couple of perpetrators yelling, but what does he see most? His partner is useless, and you can see the shock and dismay in his face.
100% he's in shock. I was in shock watching it. I said, what is he doing? I mean, I have up on the screen right now, if you see, there's a tall black officer. He's on the radio. You see him. He's looking for a street sign. This leads me to believe that they're both rookies. They both don't have too much time on the job because they didn't even know where they were. Number one rule before you're going to get into anything. Number one rule, even if you're not a cop and you're driving around, know where you are. Because if you turn a corner and you need help, how are you calling for help if you can't even tell somebody where you are? So right there, I see the tall black cop calling for help. But he's calling for help while his partner is wrestling with someone, while an individual is in between both of them. And he's not attempting to physically get in between the second individual going after his officer. And then there's even a third person behind him, and he's completely unaware of him. Possible third assailant. And that individual, closed fist, hand continuously goes in the pocket. I mean, very, very horrible tactics. And you're watching your partner wrestle with someone. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to knock the Latino officer at all, because I don't even know, even if he's trained, if he follows through with his training. Because jiu-jitsu, you're taking this individual to the floor. Do you really want to get on the floor when your partner's not helping you and there's two other males that he's clearly either intimidated by or siding with?
I'll agree with you and disagree with you, because jiu-jitsu, yes, overwhelming majority of jiu-jitsu is obviously being on the ground, but also the art of jiu-jitsu is knowing how to deal with the ground so you don't get there. So there is a lot of stand-up. There is a lot of stand-up training to jiu-jitsu, and also, like I said, I did train in wrestling. So, which in judo, which is important, how to operate on your feet. I don't blame the cop. I blame the police department for not giving this cop the training. That's why my best advice is and I've said this before, this is a horrible profession right now, especially the New York City Police Department. There's no training and no support. But if you are going to take this job, then you have to take it upon yourself to make sure that you are prepared. Now, as I said, I will give him an A for effort, at least for trying. He's trying, untrained, but at least he has the heart. So this is someone that I would put in my unit because they have potential. Clearly, this person has heart. He's willing to try. He shows courage. What's the difference between the coward and the hero? They feel the same thing, but the hero is willing to walk through it. That's bravery and that's courage. I teach that to my own son. So this person has potential. They just need training. Clearly doesn't have the proper training. Now, I will say this. When we look at that partner, clearly he has no situational awareness. But we talk about body language a lot on this podcast. Look at the body language of that police officer. And I hate to even call him a police officer, but look at the body language. He's not even basing his body. He's not involved. He's not engaged. He's not helping at all. And the reason why I say that, you can see the comparison. The other cop that eventually tells everyone to get back, he's not touching anyone either, but he's actively engaged. He's using the art of moving people without touching them. Sometimes that's a skill also when you're involved in an incident like this. But that cop is absolutely useless. He's exactly what I've been saying for years. He's meek, timid, and docile.
I think he should be suspended immediately. I mean, I think this is completely a danger to everyone. And again, I see a warrior mindset, and I see this weak, timid, and docile guardian mindset that's been drilled into the NYPD, which is what they call police officers now. We don't want people that are warriors. We want people that are guardians. No, we want people that are guardians when it need to be guardians, but when the fight's on, we need people to be warriors. Now, we don't know why this incident started. We don't know why the male was being placed under arrest or attempted to be placed under arrest. We have no idea what happened prior to this. I'm sure we'll find out in the coming days. But to me, at that point, it doesn't matter. You have a responsibility to keep the scene safe. Even if your partner did something or you don't agree with the reasoning or his legal reasonings at this point, you're still required to help your partner out in the field. Now, if he was completely violating the law or something, completely different. But even at that time, you should still gain control of the situation, gain compliance, make the scene safe, and then deal with what you have to deal with after. I don't know if this person is being a street attorney, this cop, the partner, or if he is just paralyzed with fear. I really can't tell, and I agree with you, Eric. His body language is completely horrendous. He wants no part of this whatsoever.
So, based on my observations, as I watch this video and I see his body language, and I see how he's standing upright, and he has the radio, he has no sense of situation awareness and no sense to take part in active participant as a police officer engaged in this incident. He's not watching his partner. He's not watching the perpetrators behind him, his adversaries. He's not aware of what's going on above him. So not only is he a liability to himself, he's a liability to this cop. He's a liability to any pedestrians that may came by. He's a complete liability. That's the problem. We see from the leadership of the NYPD is they'll excuse behavior like this. And they'll say that the police department shows restraint. But actually, what this police officer is doing is actually causing potential more harm to other cops and other citizens. This cop is a huge liability. And I don't think that he's completely afraid. I think that you could see his position. He's standing upright. He just wants no part of it. I don't think he's actually afraid of the entire incident, but clearly he's not prepared to be a cop, and he has no sense and he has no desire to actually be a cop. He took this job for the wrong reasons, and I'm saying right now, I'm calling for his termination.
Listen, I also said that the two Chinese cops who got water thrown on them should have been suspended immediately. I said they should have been suspended immediately, and they weren't. Nothing happened to them. Absolutely zero happened to them. As a matter of fact, there were public outcry and people standing up for them. And I said, what happens when they're involved in a fight? What happens when this happens? Same as when, right around that time, we had the viral photo of the restraint and all of 2020 where we were supposed to be restrained and let people scream in our faces. I mean, a lot of us did not let that happen, right? Because we were trained completely different. You don't let someone get into your personal space. You don't let someone get into your side of your zone of safety. But the newer breed, we saw letting that happen, and we saw the chiefs rewarding that behavior and demonizing us, right? And that's kind of where we lost. We lost all respect on New York City streets. So a guy like this, in the early years of broken windows and stop, question, and frisk, you wouldn't even have known that you were working with this guy because you wouldn't have had the public backlash that you're having now. These people would not have attempted to fight with you. 3 guys would not have attempted to fight with the police because they would have known in about 4 seconds there's going to be about 50 police officers there, and they're all getting arrested. And I question that. Were all 3 of them arrested, or is only one? Because I only seen one getting arrested. When I see 3 perpetrators right there, OGA, resisting, disorderly conduct. I don't care whatever happened prior to that. Add those to all 3 of them.
You're absolutely right. I've been saying that for years. So what has happened is because the overwhelming majority of the police department had a great reputation and it had the fear and respect that it needed on the streets of New York City. And yes, some people say fear. Yes, there needs to be a level of fear of the police department and respect, and they coincide together. And yes, there were cops that were able to be slipped through the cracks and go untraced and unnoticed, that they did not have the traits to be a New York City police officer. But now, because we have a diminished police department And the police department that no longer has that iconic reputation is now faced with more adversarial incidents, as we see here. And now the systemic problem of meek, timid, and docile police officers because of DEI hires, because of the training of the police department, because of the transition the police department went from being a strong, iconic police department into the mayoral, under the mayoral leadership, failed leadership of former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and now even further with Mayor Eric Adams 2.0. So this is the police department we now have, and I do believe the overwhelming majority is more in conformance, not with the police officer that is attempting to grapple, but this police officer that is a complete empty suit. And again, you could say, well, maybe he's terrified of CCRB, maybe he's terrified of New York City Council. But where is that heart inside you? Where is that feeling that you must protect another man and not leave another man behind? There is absolutely no excuse for this. I know that, John, you or myself or overwhelming majority of the cops that we know and we speak in conversation, that despite the fear of CCRB, city council, civil liability, even potential incarceration, that you could not knowingly watch your partner be in a position where he could get hurt or killed and stand there and do nothing. This is unacceptable. And again, I'm calling for his termination. Because if he doesn't get terminated, this systemic problem only further creates potential harm for other officers and the public. This is absolutely ridiculous. Not only that, it also puts the potential adversaries who eventually are in custody, it puts them in harm's way also.
See, I'm going to disagree with you, though. I don't think he should be terminated. I think that he was trained to be this way by the New York City Police Academy. I think that this problem is absolutely systemic. If anyone should be trained, it should be the chief of training. It should be the police commissioner. It should be the chief of department. They are trained to do this. And we took the training, and we said when we took this training that, and it's called ABLE training for people that don't know, we said at that time, the majority of us who were looking at that training, we said this is going to make cops question their partner, question their supervisors. And that's exactly it's happened. By ABLE training, he's a good police officer. And because his partner took action, he's the aggressor. He's the bad police officer. So he's just trying to de-escalate while his partner is escalating. So to me, I say that he's got a good case if they do try to terminate him, because this is exactly what he's trained, because he's going to turn right on his partner. Whatever happened, whether that partner is 100% in the right or 100% in the wrong, whatever happens, they are both labeled now. They're both the black sheep. He's the instigator. He's the non-aggressor. Who's going to be held more responsible in the eyes of New York City Council, in the eyes of the media, in the eyes of the public? The majority of people are going to say that police officer that's putting his hands on those people, he did it because he's over aggressive, and they're going to look at his partner and say he's the good cop.
Well, you actually agree with me, because I don't disagree with you. I believe that he should be terminated, but also who needs to be terminated, and we need a complete overhaul, is the failed leadership of the NYPD. So you're absolutely right. I blame both sides. Clearly, these cops have zero training that's applicable to save their lives on the street. But what that one cop has there is heart. So that you can't replace. This other cop, this police officer, whatever you want to call him, this empty suit that took this job, has zero heart, doesn't belong in any profession that mirrors law enforcement, military, anything like that. You can't give this guy a heart. That's the bottom line. He should be terminated because he has zero heart. Yes. Does he have the proper training? No, but he didn't even try. He saw another man. Forget about being a police officer. Your partner for that day, who you're responsible for, and that was what's so effective when I was in the Marine Corps, is the theory was leave no man behind. So you always protected your partner. You show that person, I'm there for you, and that person is also for you. So yes, is it failed leadership? Absolutely, because we have a diminished police department. We have absolutely no training. We have ABLE training. We actually encourage behavior like this because we haven't seen anyone get terminated for cowardice. What we see is the police department say, they showed restraint and we'll give them more training. more training. You haven't given them any training. When it comes to training, we have to build a house. We have to start with the foundation. And clearly, this cop does not have the foundation. You can see the body language. There's no base. There's no sense of him being involved, because when you see that other cop there, it reminds me when I used to play basketball. When I was young and I would play ball, they would say, not only do you have to be effective when you have the ball, but you have to be effective when you're the person who doesn't have the ball. You have to know how to move without the ball and put yourself in a proper position. And that's what that other cop did, is he wasn't really touching anyone, but he was putting himself in a position. His body language said he was a participant. He put his chin down. His body was based. His hands were up. He was ready to go if he had to. And I'm not sure if he could handle it properly. Did he have the training? But sure damn well, just from watching this video, that he had the potential and he was willing to try. So it's definitely on both coins. I blame the leadership. Absolutely. I blame them more than anyone else. But since men and women like this are taking the job, they need to go. We need a complete overhaul of the New York City Police Department. No longer is it the same job. It's the same patch, but a different job.
I mean, he's got clear examples of how to be successful doing exactly what he's doing in his career. I mean, he could be the next Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, right? I see Tariq Shepard in him. I see New York City Mayor Eric Adams in him. You know, this is the Eric Adams style of policing. And I don't say that because he's the mayor. I say that because this is how Eric Adams policed. This is how a whole culture in the New York City Police Department, this anti-broken windows, this anti-stop, question, and frisk cop, the woke cop, this is how they police. So I agree. He should be immediately suspended. I don't think you have a case to fire him, because if you have a case to fire him, you're going to have to fire about 90% of the cops who are on the job now. And it doesn't even go by the era, because this is what they're hiring. Meek, timid, docile, question your partner, question your supervisor. The police department's wrong. Listen to your moral teachers in executive office and executive leadership, and listen to the politicians on the left in New York City. Everybody else is a racist and hates black people, hates immigrants, hates everybody else. This is the mindset. This is the de-escalation mindset. Weak, timid, and docile. So, and that's why I'm saying I'm not disagreeing with you that he shouldn't be fired. I'm saying I don't think there's a case to fire him, because he was trained to be this person. He was hired to be this person. I think he wins the lawsuit. I personally think even if they fired him, he's back on the job, because he was trained to do exactly that, intervene. And that's what he did. I seen him put his hand on both the cop and the perpetrator, almost in a way to try to separate them. I see another guy here that should get immediately taken to the ground after he called for 85 with his hand in his hoodie, reaching for God knows what. And he's not going to do it, because you know why? He's attempting to de-escalate the situation, Eric. Guys like you're trying to escalate the situation. You're going to make it worse. Guys like him are the good cop. And that's what I'm saying, is I'm saying this problem is systemic. It's so systemic, it's scary, because this is not a one-off. It's not I mean, we've done how many videos in the last year and a half that people are like, what is that cop doing? What happened? You know, it's systemic, dude. This is the training. This is how people are being trained. Hands off, stand back, wait for something to happen, and then react.
Well, you're absolutely right. He definitely would have a good case that if he was terminated from the job and say, well, you know what, they never gave him the proper training. His attorney would show the able training. You could comparison that other cops were in positions precariously just as this cop, where they were, in some cases, actually commended for their restraint. And again, I right? I know you're shaking your head. It's true. But it does bring me back. I remember towards the end of the tenure of my career, and I mentioned this before in an earlier podcast, but I'll mention it again. I was standing around by the desk in the precinct. I was at PSA 7. And I remember one of the cops said to me, wow, look, boss, they just hire anybody. At this time, we were getting different classes coming out. I said, no. They don't just hire anyone. They hire those that are meek, timid, and docile. They're looking for a specific trait, specific characteristics to now fill the shoes, while simultaneously the alpha males of the police department were being pushed out of the police department. John McCarry, decide to stand on his moral principles, stand for his religious beliefs. Sal Greco's pushed out for being friends with Roger Stone. And of course, Eric Dim is pushed out, could no longer do what was paid and trained to do because of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So this is what we're faced up against. The overwhelming majority of the alpha males, the veterans of the New York City Police Department, to pass on the torch to the young police officers are now removed. And this is your byproduct. This is what your overwhelming majority of the police department looks like. And it's more apparent and obvious than it ever was before because they're exposed, because no longer can they hide. They're in a position that they have to do the job because the job is so diminished. And this is the byproduct. And I agree with you. This is not a one-off. He is one of many. There are more out there right now that are just like it. And I'm telling you right now, if you're on this job and you know that you embody the same characteristics, please do everyone a favor. Save everyone's life and get yourself a new job because this is unacceptable. Yes, and we must hold the leadership accountable because the leadership has failed everyone. We need to get these cops proper training, not just physically. Yes, it's great to say jiu-jitsu and all this stuff. I think that is a huge help. And I'm not saying you have to be martial artist, but we also have to build mindset. Look at the mindset of this cop. Clearly, his head is not in the game. He is not a participant. If anything, I think this cop would have been better off by himself than with this cop. This cop is useless. He's absolutely more of a burden than he is helping him.
I personally think that he messed with his psyche, dude. I think he messed with his partner's psyche. When you look at this now, you see 3 males approaching you while you're fighting by yourself. No one's helping you. Who's on your team at that point? Who do you feel is on your team? I'll even make the case that the guy standing in the blue uniform is more of an enemy to you than the other two because they're going to say exactly what happened. You don't know how he's going to spin the situation. You don't know what he's going to say that's going to hang you in a court of law. You know, and I've been saying that for a long time. I felt like we're playing this dangerous game with people who we really shouldn't be playing it with. And they are more of an enemy to the truth and to what actually happened than the perpetrators. Because the perpetrator more than likely is going to just say exactly what happened. What their perception and why they're mad is they're going to tell you they violated the law and they're going to corroborate the police officer's story when you have someone who's going to make themselves be out the hero and actually lie. And if you're in a publicity stunt or you're in this political windstorm, they're going to paint this guy as the good guy. They're going to paint this officer as the good officer. So Eric, let's I think we labeled it out. Like, what should be done going forward? Police Commissioner Eric Dim, what do you do to stop this immediately?
I'm so glad that you asked that. First of all, before I even answer that, I want to say this, and this is important to say. It just shows that the overwhelming majority of people in New York City are actually good people. And I will say this, even though the subjects in this video are perpetrators and adversaries in this incident, we are quite fortunate that they're not just downright evil. Because I'm watching the body language and the positioning of these adversaries right now. If they wanted to, they could easily take this useless cop down to the ground, take his taser, take his gun, and there would be 2 dead cops. So thank God they're not evil and they didn't have that in their heart. What we see is crimes of opportunity. The reason why the adversaries and the persons of interest act in this manner is because they've been emboldened and they've been enabled by the politicians and the legislation. It's a criminal-first society that has led to this. Now, if I was Police Commissioner Eric Dim tomorrow, the first thing I would do is remove the entire upper echelon of the New York City Police Department, and I would instantly, I would stop the training that they have right now, and we have a board to convene, and we would change the training immediately. And there would be 2 segments. There would be your actual practical application of training. And it would be a combination of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, some boxing, and potentially we would actually do some actual like video simulations of that just to build a mindset along with that. But I would actually see if I could get funding and also talk to these schools in the New York City area and also the outside counties where these cops live to get the cops a percentage or some type of deal where they go to trainings and it would be part of the curriculum. And I would add points to the test, such things like that. If you're being trained and you're going to jiu-jitsu and you get a belt, that would be points towards a test. If you're doing judo and you do so many hours, that would be points so that it's incentivized. But also the other segment would be mindset training. And we would have to build a warrior mindset and teach the cops that they have to know how to turn it on, when to be a warrior and when to be a guardian, when it's wartime and when it's garrison. Immediately, we have to change the training. Now, unfortunately, but this is the reality, we would have to terminate some of these cops, even though it's the fault on the leadership. But we'd have to go through. We would have to definitely talk to our attorneys and find out which cops mirror this cop, and they would have to be either terminated if we've had incidents before, or they would have to be evaluated, and they would immediately be sent to the new training that is applied to the police department, because the training that we have is completely ineffective. And along with that, we would have to change the candidate assessment system. We have to hire those that are suitable to do this job. That doesn't mean they have to be trained, but they have to have the potential.
I like it. So do you fire this? Do you fire this guy?
Listen, I get it. I get what you're saying about, he has a case and he has a lawsuit, and the New York City Police Department is very comfortable, along with the city, in payouts. That's what they do. I would terminate him, yes, and I would pay. I would say, you know what? Unfortunately, the taxpayer has lost money because the police department has failed you. But going forward, no longer will you see this again.
I think you got to set an example, dude. If you want to send a clear message, you got to set an example, right? The New York City's not worried about the lawsuits. Let them sue. And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Set an example. Set an immediate example. There should be a message sent out to the intranet. This is not what you do on New York City streets. If there is an issue stemming from the arrest, it will be dealt with after the arrest. You immediately notify your supervisor after the scene is made safe. You do not stand there with your hand in your pockets. And thank God for these housing cops that showed up. Thank God for them, man. They came in there. They were about the business, and they were bringing order to the scene and showing them how to get people back, right? But again, I think when we look at overall, those individuals that interfered should have been arrested as well. There should be consequences for them. And I get it. I hear the complaints from everyone. The DAs aren't going to draw it up. Why do it? Why do this? Then what are we paying you for? What are we paying you for? What is New York City residents paying? What do we need you standing there in a uniform doing absolutely nothing for? Why do we need people to restore order if there is no order? If there's no order, then there's no order. What do we need? What do we need to put you in a uniform and you drive around and waste gas for? What does that need to be done for? So I think at this point, that's exactly what needs to be done. There needs to be a strong message sent throughout. That ABLE training needs to be thrown in the garbage and scrapped. And there needs to be a clear precedent of what needs to happen on New York City streets. And it's that when there's an arrest being made, you will help to effectuate the arrest. And if there are issues with that, you will notify a supervisor and or IAB immediately after.
Look at this cop right here. I don't know his name. Right, this is the cop that I'm talking about here. He looks like he's maybe Hispanic or light-skinned black. He's the cop I'm talking about. Just like when you play basketball, you have to know how to move when you don't have the ball. This cop knows how to move without actually handling the actual perpetrator that's being arrested, with handling the adversaries. This cop right here, I don't know him, but if he has the proper training, he looks like he could be a hell of a cop. I would put him in special operations. Look at the way he's moving. He's observant. He's watched the entire crowd, but his body's based. He's prepared. He's professional, but yet at the same time, you can tell he has the warrior spirit. Why do you think the adversaries at this point are not advancing anymore? They're engaging him in a verbal altercation at this point, but they're not getting physical with him because they know that this cop means business. This cop is professional. He stood his ground. He's mirroring his potential adversaries. He's protecting his fellow officers. That's a good cop. People say, oh, what's a good cop? That's a good cop. All that he needs is proper training. That's what he needs. And that's where the failure of the leadership is. Now, I don't know how much time he has on the job, but you can see that he has the heart And here, now look, again, let's make the comparison just to the body language of this useless cop that should be terminated. You can see his face, his body language is upright. He is not a participant. He is a liability. That cop is useless. And this other cop here, like, again, he could use some training, but at least he's trying to get this perpetrator under control. And no matter what, even if you have training, it's probably one of the hardest things to do is to overcome and control another human being. Just think, the people that are out there, most of us have kids. If you're holding your 2-year-old and trying to get them to calm down, it's so hard to control a 2-year-old. So imagine controlling an adult. So, again, and hats off to them. Listen, I was in housing, and in housing, you are forced to be hands-on on a daily basis. So hats off to the housing cops here. Kudos to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we beat it up enough. NYPD is emasculated, timid, weak, docile. Want to end on anything?
That's great. It's just, man, it kills me every time we watch a video like this. And you know what? And then I get texts from the cops that used to work with me, and they say, you know what, boss, thank you. We'll never have a video like this. You kept us safe because this is what I'm talking about when it comes to mindset. I built the mindset that my cops felt confident because they knew that I supported them, because I wanted them to go home to their wives, to their husbands, to their families. I wanted them to go home safe, because not only is it reflective of themselves, but it's reflective of the community. So for that, makes me proud. And to the men and women that are out there right now, you have a right to protect yourselves. And if you see another cop act in that way, you better pull him to the side and tell him to get a new job. Thank you very much.
Thank God there was no body camera when Eric Adams was a cop.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed, or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.